Apologies. There we go. All right, now we're recording. So welcome everybody to our November Lunch and Learn. As I said, we have Scott Bayha. He's a Maxwell certified leadership coach with us today, talking about leadership, employee engagement, all things that are amazing for any time of the year. We're excited to have him. If you have questions during his presentation, please put those in the chat and we'll try and grab those at the end. He also said he will have a survey for us at the end, so stick around so that you can get that assessment tool for your use. And we will, as usual, post this recording to our website when it is available, so you can go back and watch it or share it. Anybody that missed it today can catch up on that. So Scott, we really appreciate you being here and taking the time for us today. I'm going to turn it right over so you can have some time, and we will see everybody in a little bit.
All right. Thank you, Courtney. Good afternoon, everybody. As Courtney said, my name is Scott Bayha, and I'm very happy to be with you here today and to have the opportunity to spend about 45 minutes or so talking about a topic that to me is extremely fascinating and a topic that makes such an enormous difference in the results of any organization or any individual for that matter. And that topic is leadership. I don't think there's any part of any organization or any part of your life that leadership doesn't affect, whether it's leading yourself or leading others or leadership of leaders. It really applies to everything. And if you think about it, strong leadership is probably at the heart of every sizable human achievement and always has been. So now this topic is absolutely huge and would really take years, not minutes, to do it justice. So it's my goal today to give you as much value as I can in a short amount of time. We'll cover some tried and tested and proven ideas that when they're applied, really will make a difference to your employee engagement. Today, building the right environment for people is key to attract and keep talented employees. It's been, in recent years, keeping your workplace healthy and safe, open, trained, and fully staffed has been a challenge. Successful organizations understand that everything rises and falls on leadership. And make no mistake, employee engagement also falls in this category. Successful organizations recognize the most powerful factor in an organization is culture. Company culture is a way of life that's cultivated over time through behavior, through symbols, and through systems. They're outward displays of what's valued. Behavior refers to what's done, especially leaders. People do what people see. Symbols refer to how time is spent and how money is allocated, how titles work and how communications work in a company. And systems refer to what gets measured, what's reported, and how we pay people. Culture is created as a result of the messages employees receive about how we behave around here. Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. But how you become successful in business is dependent on the culture of your organization. A healthy culture is built intentionally. Leaders must chart the course for the team. And for that to happen, leaders must know the way. In the last 20, and particularly the last 10 years, organizations have increasingly begun to measure employee engagement. Today, we'll review the 2022 employee engagement statistics and relate them to 4 of John Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Excuse me. Leadership is a huge topic. And like I said, we'll only be brushing the surface here with limited time, but I believe I can help make an impact on your engagement with these concepts we'll be sharing today. So let's get started. Most companies recognize that culture is their true source of competitive advantage. While almost everything within a business is replicable, strategy, processes, and tools, the one thing that can't be copied is your culture. Employee engagement is not your culture. Engagement is a measurement of parts of your organizational culture that indicate whether its cultural practices are successful. Now, engagement serves as a guiding light as companies strive to hone and refine their culture. And culture and engagement are critical and ultimately determine the fate of your organizations. So if you do not intentionally create your culture, what usually develops is bad culture. According to the Society for Human Resources Management, employee engagement is employees' satisfaction with their work and pride in their employer, to the extent to which people enjoy and believe what they do for work and have the perception that their employer values what they bring to the table. There's no direct way to quantify the importance of culture. So to understand this impact, businesses use surveys to help track whether employees share a common set of beliefs and priorities, whether or not individual goals align with company goals, and whether or not employees take collective actions towards achieving those goals. The survey can show a lack of consensus in areas that can use attention, or it can show unity demonstrating strong cohesive culture. But measuring those changes over time helps decode a company culture. Engagement surveys are usually run annually or biannually, and surveys are usually the responsibility of the human resource departments. Unfortunately, many times because HR departments do run the surveys, nobody else gets involved. It should be a huge effort by companies to make sure that it should be a whole of leadership approach when you're in trying to improve your employee engagement. It cannot be done just by making it HR's responsibility. Since 2000, Gallup has been collecting data worldwide on engagement through annual surveys. The Gallup organization subscribes to their measurement of engagement called the Q12. Although many other organizations offer engagement surveys, Gallup's strength is the amount of data that they've been able to collect and analyze worldwide and are recognized as the benchmark. These are the 12 statements used in creating the worldwide results. I know what's expected of me at work. I have all the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. At work, I can do what I do best every day. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. My supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. There is someone at work who encourages my development. At work, my opinions seem to count. The mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. My associates or fellow employees are committed to doing quality work. I have a best friend at work. In the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. And this last year, I've had the opportunities to learn and grow at work. So these are the Gallup Engagement Survey Report for 2022. If you take a look at the green line up on the top, that's the percent engaged. The blue line is the percent actively disengaged. So after 20 years of generally trending upward in engagement, there is a pronounced drop in the percent of engaged workers from 36% in 2020 to 32% in 2022. Excuse me. Let me say that again. 36% in 2020 to 32% in 2022. That erased almost 20% of the gain that's been made in the last 20 years. It was the first annual decline in a decade. Looking at the dark blue line, in 2022, 17% are actively disengaged, an increase of 3 percentage points from 2 years ago. Now, there's no surprise with COVID, the Great Resignation, the unstable economy we have right now, that this decline began in 2020 with COVID and all the uncertainty we still face in the landscape. This is still going to be an issue for businesses going forward. The 4 statements in red were the items that declined the most in 2022. I know what's expected of me at work. I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. At work, I can do my best every day, and the mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. Every one of these elements is a responsibility of leadership, but not every leader knows that they need to manage these things, and not every leader knows how to manage them. Also, no surprise, people who were fully or exclusively remote, even before COVID, had a larger disconnect than other participants in the survey. The decline in engagement was the highest for remote workers. Fewer workers believe that their employers care about their overall well-being in 2022 than ever before. Employee engagement is foundational to improving the well-being and resilience of a workforce because it contains elements of communication and caring and development, involvement, and collaboration. These elements set the stage for developing trust, which opens the door for addressing overall well-being. Engaged employees are enthusiastic, committed, loyal, and committed to personal and organizational growth. Engaged employees lead to higher service, quality, productivity, which leads to higher customer satisfaction, which leads to increased sales through repeat business and referrals, which leads to higher levels of profit, leading to higher shareholder returns. Unengaged employees are complacent and lack initiative. They portray a lack of participation and have higher absenteeism, and generally are less inclined to stay with your organization. An actively disengaged employee is physically present, usually with low output, and actively demotivates other employers and are openly dissatisfied. The solution is a well thought out, intentional training process for your team members and specific training for your organizational leadership. And I can show you why it's needed. Let's take a look at some of the statistics from the last few years. And I don't mean to create a statistics overload, but this information, along with the Gallup engagement survey, tells a really interesting story. Almost 80% of companies reported a gap in leadership development. And up to 42% of corporations do not know or do not have a leadership competency framework that would guide their development plan. Even though 58% of those in senior management roles have never had any formal training, even though they know that leadership training boosts the behavior of businesses by almost 30%, and even though managers who have received proper training are up to 88% more productive. Stress in the workplace often happens when people are over their head. Typically, the workload is too high for their physical or mental capability, or the conditions and expectations are not attainable in the current situation. US-based businesses suffered $300 billion in loss each year due to workplace stress. Moreover, 66% of the recent survey respondents stated that they've lost sleep in the past due to stress from work. Only 52% of employees in corporate America believe that their employer cares about their work-life balance. And this one gets me. 76% of respondents are more likely to trust someone they don't know than their superiors at work. So stress happens when people are working too far from their competency for too long without improving, resulting in frustration. Having an intentional training plan for each employee in each position is critical for building a proper work culture. Intentional training communicates an environmental growth. Intentional training provides people the feeling of value when the company invests in their growth and gives people the feeling that they can succeed as well. People feel more trust when there's a consistent and well thought out plan from their leadership. Intentionally developing as a learning organization can provide a valuable framework to set the standards to continuously learn and grow professionally and personally. Demonstrate the value the organization has for people by providing them with valuable knowledge. Ensuring team members are minimally or maximally qualified in the skills required to perform their job. And reduce costs by reducing training time. An intentional plan should engage employees from before day one, smoothly transition them into and through an orientation process and into a position where they can begin to learn and be able to contribute at the earliest possible moment. Have a plan for their continued development, or at least through what needs to happen for their next promotion. Make sure that the team member knows your plan and buys in. Once they're minimally trained, offer other training opportunities. Companies with clear, consistent training at levels have lower turnover and longer tenure than those that do not, and often become the employers of choice in their areas. Most of the 12 statements in Gallup's Q12 can be effectively managed with a servant leadership mindset. Like I said, everything rises and falls on leadership. Now, leadership is absolutely a teachable skill. It's predictable, it operates by laws, and if you learn the laws, you can learn to lead. But if you ignore the laws, then you're always going to struggle with leadership. It's always going to be a source of frustration for you. The core leadership philosophy that I'm going to talk about today, the key concepts, come from John Maxwell's internationally best-selling book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It's a book that's been translated into 47 languages around the world and sold over 34 million copies. It has become the leadership Bible for many organizations. Now, John has written over 100 books. He's consistently been voted year over year as the #1 leadership guru in the world, and he's produced a string of best-selling books on leadership. But The 21 Laws is probably his most popular book. And I think one of the reasons that it's been and continues to be so successful is the information is accessible. It's not an intellectual thesis on leadership. It's very simple it's practical, and it's easy to understand. But that makes a huge difference right away to your results. So unfortunately, we're not, like I said, we're not going to be able to cover all 21 laws in such a short space of time. We're going to look at 4 of them. For those of you that want to know more, then we'll talk about a couple of different things at the end. But you can dig into these concepts in more detail. Okay, so now I said we're going to just take a look at these 4 laws. And you can see on the slide, we're going to look at the law of the lid, the law of addition, the law of solid ground, and the law of empowerment. So a quick summary is how well you lead determines how successful you're going to be. And that's the law of the lid. Leaders serve people by adding value, and that's the law of addition. Trust is the foundation of leadership, and that's the law of solid ground. And only secure people give power to others, and that's the law of empowerment. So I've chosen these 4 because when we realize that we'll only be as successful as our ability to lead, and engagement is adding value, building trust, and empowering, it gives us something to immediately work on. And it gives us the process of setting our leadership into action. So we'll start with the law of the lid. Leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. So Maurice and Dick were 2 brothers and restaurateurs who built a successful restaurant chain. They were masters in organization and customer service, and other restaurateurs really wanted to learn their methods. They attempted to franchise, but they dismally failed. They lacked the leadership necessary to make a large enterprise effective. They were efficient managers, but they just weren't leaders. They ran into the law of the lid. Like I said, the law of the lid says leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. So if you're an average leader, say a 5 out of 10, this law says your level of effectiveness can't be higher than a 5. So if you think about that for a minute, if your law of effectiveness is at a 5 or a 6, what's the confidence level in the team that you lead? As you raise your leadership ability, that effectiveness and team confidence raises with it. A leader affects a group of others, and training leaders is the first and the best way to affect more people at one time. You cannot give what you do not have. This law tells us as leaders that we need to continue growing our leadership ability because our ability determines our effectiveness and the effectiveness of others. So if you take a look at this graph and we plot leadership ability on the left and success dedication across the bottom, in this representation, we're as successful at a level 8 out of 10, but our leadership is not even on the radar. This is what your business effectiveness would look like. If this were the case, to improve, you only have a few choices. One is to work hard and increase your dedication, and maybe you'll reach 10. The law of diminishing returns says that last 20% may not be worth it. Or you could work on increasing your leadership ability. If your natural leadership ability is slightly below average, say at a 4, and you use that ability, it would increase your leadership ability by 300% just by applying what you have. And if you worked on it a medium amount of time and you work to increase it to say a 6, without increasing your success dedication or time spent on the business, you would increase your effectiveness by 600%. As a leader, you must continue to develop yourself and improve your leadership ability in those around you. The higher your leadership ability, the more effective you can be in your business. But don't feel bad for Dick and Maurice and their inability to increase their leadership ability. After failing to execute their franchise plan, Dick and Maurice McDonald sold the rights to their restaurant to a milkshake machine guy named Ray, who named the franchise after them. But to apply the law of the lid to your life, you'll want to do a self-assessment of your leadership ability. You want others to do an assessment of your leadership ability, somebody you trust, your boss, or someone you care for. You want to identify and explore those gaps. Now, I've prepared an assessment that will make available at the end of this presentation, so you can do an assessment on the 4 laws that we're covering today. And there's more that we can add to this. As you do the assessment, there'll be some options that you can do all 21 laws. So let's move to the law of addition. We've chosen the law of addition to illustrate the power of servant leadership mindset and the impact it can have on engagement. The law of addition exemplifies the servant leader mindset, like I said. The bottom line in leadership isn't how far we advance ourselves, but how far we advance others. The interaction between leader and follower is a relationship, and all relationships either add or subtract from a person's life. So there's one real question that it comes down to. Are you making things better for the people who follow you? 90% of people that are subtractors don't intend to be subtractors. They don't even realize that they're subtractors. And 90% of those people who do add value do so intentionally. So people are naturally selfish, and being an adder requires me to get out of my comfort zone and think frequently about adding value to others. Albert Einstein said, only a life lived in the service of others is worth living. When you add value to people, you lift them up, help them advance, make them a part of something bigger than yourselves, and help them be what they were made to be. Often, a leader is the only person in another person's life that is able to help them do those things. We add value to others when we truly value others. Leaders must value others. This needs to be intentional and out in the open. It needs to be demonstrated every day, everywhere. It just takes longer to get work done, but as a leader, people are the work. It's our job to listen to our employees and be available. John Maxwell calls it walking slowly among the crowd to make sure that you're there to answer questions. American Sign Language sign for serving is holding your hands palms up and moving them back and forth between the signer and the signee. It's a good metaphor for the attitude of servant leaders should possess: open, trusting, caring, offering to help, and willing to be vulnerable. Leaders who add value by serving others believe in their people before their people believe in them. And they serve others before they are served by their team. We add value to others when we make ourselves valuable to others. As a leader, you cannot give what you do not have. You must possess skills to teach. You must have opportunities and provide opportunities through hard work. If you possess wisdom, you gained it intentionally by evaluating experiences you've had. The more intentional you've been in growing yourself personally, the more you have to offer. We add value to others when we know and relate to what others value. People with common values are naturally attracted to one another. How do you know what's important to your employees? We listen, right? An inexperienced leader is quick to lead before knowing anything about the people they intend to lead. A mature leader listens, learns, and then leads. You listen to their stories, find out about their hopes and dreams, become acquainted with their aspirations, pay attention to their emotions, discover what's valuable to them. When I first was given a job in a textile mill as a night shift supervisor, I was dropped in there in the middle of the night with no experience. I had to very quickly learn to ask my team and trust my team and learn from them. It was a great experience to learn to add value. Dan Cathy, Chick-fil-A, says they have built an attitude of service that pervades everything that they do. Chick-fil-A's second mile of service attitude provides better customer return than the strongest fast food places. Their desire to win through service instead of winning through strength. They trained not just how to fry chicken, they taught their team members customer service based on values. Their values culture convinced them that they could teach employees, and their employees are teens, etiquette in the fast food world. They've transformed the experience for fast food businesses when they began teaching service as a leadership development tool. During COVID, their efforts really showed, and their businesses have really boomed in the last several years. We increase our influence with people when we intentionally add value to them on a consistent basis. There are 5 steps to adding value to people daily. The first step is to value people. And you add value to people you value. Secondly, intentionally, you have to think of ways to add value to people. You must be intentional and make a plan. Third, you look for ways to add value when you're in the setting with someone. Have an open mindset. Try to see things from their point of view, which allows you to see their struggles. Fourth, do things that add value to people when you see it or when you know it. Do it. It's not about timing. It's about the other person. And then last, you want to encourage others to add value to people. Spread the good news. The attitude of the leader affects the atmosphere of the workplace. If you desire to add value by serving others, you will become a better leader. Your people will achieve more. Your people will develop more loyalty and will have a better time getting things done than you thought was possible. This is the power of the law of addition. Benjamin Franklin said, the handshake of the host affects the taste of the roast. And I believe that affects, that is in line with the attitude of a leader. So how do we apply the law of addition to our lives? Well, you have to ask yourself if you have a servant's attitude. And here's how to tell. When you're called to serve others, how do you respond? Are you impatient and resentful? Are certain tasks beneath your dignity? If you answered yes to any of those, your attitude could probably be better. Make it a practice to perform small acts of service for others without seeking credit or recognition. And you want to continue doing those until you no longer resent those tasks. So what do the people closest to you value is the next question you need to ask. You want to make a list of the most important people in your life, home, work, church, and write what each person values the most. And then rate yourself from 1 to 10 on how well you relate to those values. If you do not know what they value, or you score less than an 8, you need to spend some more time with that person to improve. And then to make adding value your lifestyle, you want to begin with those that are closest to you. How can you add value to others based on what's on the list that they value? And start doing those things. Then do the same with the people you lead. And if you lead large groups, you may have to think of ways to serve groups as well as individual. Adding value to people brings with it a high level of joy and satisfaction. The most meaningful impacts come from intentionally adding value to others. Next, we'll discuss the role of trust in the law of solid ground, which states that trust is the foundation of leadership. There are 3 questions that your team is asking when it's interacting with its leadership. The first is, do you care for me? The second is, can you help me? And the third is, can I trust you? Whenever you can help people to understand that you genuinely care about them, you open the door to connection, communication, and interaction. Les Gilbin, former National Salesman of the Year, said, you can't make the other fellow feel important in your presence if you secretly feel that he's a nobody. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. The second is, can you help me? And people evaluate people by what they communicate and how they listen. So when you communicate, are you selling, or are you defending, or are you helping or teaching? The ability to listen and empathize is more than agreeing with their point of view. To empathize is to view the communication from their point of view. Connecting is all about others. The key concept is connecting begins when the other person feels valued. So how do you connect with people one-on-one better? Plan for the interaction before the meeting. Understand the purpose of the interaction. Try and figure out what you want, what they want before you have that meeting. When you have the meeting, know what people value by being a good listener and when you're with them. Number 3, you find out what they value. Number 4, share your own similar values. 5, you build your relationship on those common values. And 6, spend some time to reflect on the interaction after it happens. Intentionally ask yourself, what are you going to do to increase your ability to connect one-on-one with this person and add value? Third, the question is, can I trust you? Trust is vital to business and customer relationships. Trust is vital to life. If you've ever bought a car from a used car salesman, you've had to ask, can I trust you, right? But there's three elements needed to gain trust: consistent competency, consistent connection, and consistent character. By consistently exemplifying competence, connection, and character, you can build trust. But you must have all three, no substituting allowed. People will forgive occasional mistakes based on ability, especially if they see that you're growing as a leader. They'll give you time to connect, but they will not trust somebody whose character is questionable, even occasional lapses in character can be lethal. You may fool your boss, but you can't fool your coworkers and subordinates. Leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character, says General H. Norman Schwarzkopf. But if you must be without one, be without strategy, he says. In the beginning, when you're given your first amount of trust in a new job, it's like change in your pocket. And as you build trust with people, you gain change. But as you let people down or lose trust, you lose change. You don't really know how much change you have. You don't know until you run out that you've run out. It may not be the biggest problem that you've had, but it's certainly the last one when you run out of change. Trust is like a balloon in that manner. When it pops, it's gone and you can't get it back. Leading people is like going on a journey together. The way the trip will go is predicted by our character. With good character, the longer the trip gets, the better it gets. With bad character, the longer the trip, the worse it gets. Why? Because nobody enjoys spending time with people they don't trust. Character communicates consistency. Leaders without inner strength cannot be counted on day after day because their ability to perform constantly changes. If your people do not know what to expect from you as a leader, at some point they stop looking to you for leadership. The best example of consistency of character I can think of is Billy Graham. Everyone trusted him regardless of their beliefs. He modeled high character for more than 75 years of public life. He lived his values every day. He made and kept commitments, and he went out of his way to model integrity. Character communicates potential. No man can climb beyond the limitations of his own character, John Morley, the British journalist and politician, said. Weak character is limiting. Who has the greater potential? The person that is fair and honest, disciplined and hardworking, or someone who's deceitful and impulsive and lazy? It's pretty obvious when you think about it that way. Talent alone is never enough. Who remembers Terrell Owens? He was unable to get along with players and coaches everywhere he played. His potential was squandered. Poor character is like a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before it blows up a person's ability to perform and the capacity to lead. The reason? Because ultimately people with weak character are untrustworthy. And it's about trust in the foundation of leadership. You don't build trust by talking about it. You build it by achieving results, always with integrity and in a manner that shows real personal regard for the people with whom you work. Character communicates respect. When you don't have character within, you cannot earn respect without. And respect is essential for leadership. Leaders earn respect by making good decisions, admitting their mistakes, putting what is best for their followers and organizations ahead of their own personal agendas. Without character, you cannot earn and keep this respect, which is essential for lasting leadership. Robert Gould Shaw was the colonel assigned to lead the 1st African-American Army Regiment, the Massachusetts Fighting 54th. This story was portrayed in the movie Glory. And if you haven't seen the movie, or even if you had, Colonel Shaw drove his team hard, knowing that their performance in battle would either vindicate or condemn the value of the African-American soldier and citizen. Shaw led his men from the front of the charge in their defeat by fighting and dying side by side with his men who had mutual respect for them. J.R. Miller served under Shaw and survived, and wrote of him, the only thing that walks back from the tomb with the mourners and refuses to be buried is the character of a man. What a man is survives him and can never be buried. Shaw's character strong to the last, had communicated a level of respect to his men that lived beyond him. A leader's good character builds trust among his followers, but when the leader breaks trust, he forfeits his ability to lead. And that's the law of solid ground. To apply the law of solid ground to your everyday life, again, you have to ask yourself some questions. How trustworthy would your followers say you are? Well, how do you measure that trust? You'll know they trust you if they openly share their opinions and feelings. Do they let you know what's going on in their areas of responsibility? Do they share their successes and their defeats? And what about colleagues or leaders? Do they put trust in you? If you have a heavy responsibility, then it's most likely that they trust you. The second question you have to ask is, what are you currently doing to develop your character, your focus on integrity, authenticity, and discipline? For integrity, you want to make a decision to be scrupulously honest. No shaving the truth, no white lies. For authenticity, you want to always be yourself with everyone. No politics or role play. And for discipline, you need to decide to do the right thing, no matter how you feel. And then third, if you've broken trust, that trust must be fixed so you can move forward. So first, apologize to whomever you've hurt or betrayed, make amends or restitution, commit to openly work to re-earning their trust. And if you have broken trust at home, you want to start there before working on the office relationships. The law of empowerment states that only secure people give power to others. This speaks directly to the symbols of culture and the Gallup statement at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. Henry Ford was an innovator and a pioneer in the U.S. auto industry in 1903. With the production of the Model T Ford produced 50% of all the cars made in the country by 1914. Ford was so proud of the Model T that he refused to modernize or expand the line until 1927 with the Model A. Despite their early prowess, by 1931, Ford had lost 23% of the market share in the U.S. auto market and was hovering around 27%. See, Henry Ford was not an empowering leader. He continually undermined his leaders, and he looked over everyone's shoulder. He created a sociological department to investigate and direct employees' personal lives. He became more eccentric. Ford's son, Edsel, worked at the company since he was a boy, and Edsel kept the company going despite Henry's ways. Henry made Edsel the president, while Henry remained the CEO and undermined him from the start. As leaders rose in the company, Henry would tear them down. The company kept losing its top executives. Some stayed, figuring the old man would eventually die. But suddenly, in 1943, without warning, Edsel died without taking over. Edsel's son, Henry, would take over the company, and he hired over 150 executives from GM to keep Ford moving forward in the industry. He convinced his grandfather to step aside. But it turns out that Henry II was no better of a leader than the first Henry. Both Henrys would alternately encourage and undermine their best people. Insecurity made it impossible to give power to others. Insecurity undermined their personal leadership potential and created havoc in their lives and immensely damaged the organization. Theodore Roosevelt said, "The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men and do what he wants, to do what he wants done, and the self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it." So remember what our two leadership games were that we were taught when we were kids? The first was King of the Hill, and the other was Follow the Leader. What was the object of King of the Hill? To knock people down, keep your position. What was the object of Follow the Leader? To do things that others couldn't or wouldn't do, to separate yourself and keep power. The problem with this is for you to win, everybody else has to lose. These games are based on insecurity and are really the opposite of how to raise leaders. Leading well is not about enriching yourself It's about empowering others. Only empowered people can reach their potential. When a leader can't or won't empower others, they create barriers that other followers cannot overcome. And when the barriers remain over time, the followers will give up, stop trying, or go on to another organization where they can maximize their potential. The number one barrier to empowerment is the desire for job security. I'm afraid I'll lose my job. Weak leaders worry that if they help their subordinates, they, the weak leader, become dispensable. And the truth is, the only way to become indispensable is to make yourself dispensable. You see, if you're able to continually empower others and help them develop so that they become capable of taking over your job, you'll become so valuable to your organization that you become indispensable. That is the paradox of the law of empowerment. If you worry that you will not be recognized for such achievement, when you consistently raise up leaders and empower them, you develop a pattern of achievement, excellence, and leadership that will be recognized and rewarded. If the team you lead always seems to succeed, people will figure out that you're leading them well. The number two barrier to resistance is change. By its nature, empowerment brings about constant change as people are forced to innovate and grow out of their comfort zone. Change is the price of progress. It's not always easy to live with. John Steinbeck said it's the nature of man as he grows older to protest against change, particularly change for the better. I guess that puts the grumpy in the grumpy old man, doesn't it? Most people don't like change, and that's a fact. It's said that leaders only love change when it's their idea. Don't be that leader. One of the most important responsibilities of a leader is to continually improve their organizations. As a leader, you must train yourself to embrace and make a way for change. Effective leaders are not only willing to change, but they also become change agents. The third barrier is a lack of self-worth. John Peers observed that you cannot lead a cavalry charge if you think that you look funny on a horse. A self-conscious leader is rarely a good leader. They're too focused on themselves, worried how they look, worried whether others think, worried whether they're liked. They cannot give power to others because they don't feel like they have any power to give. And as a leader, you cannot give what you do not have. The best leaders have a strong sense of worth. They believe in themselves, in their mission, and in their people. Only secure leaders are able to give themselves away. Mark Twain stated that great things happen when you don't care who gets the credit. And Admiral James Stockdale says, strange as it sounds, great leaders gain authority by giving it away. If you aspire to be a great leader, you need to live by the law of empowerment. To apply the law of empowerment to your life, you want to do an evaluation of your self-worth and confidence. Do you believe you have value? Do you operate on the assumption that you have positives to offer other people in your organization? If you're low in the area of security, you have a hard time with the law of empowerment. You'll want to take steps to add value to yourself and explore why your self-worth is low. Secondly, you want to evaluate your belief in others. So, do you believe in people? Make a list of all your direct reports. Rate their potential, not their ability, but their potential from 1 to 10. If your numbers are low, your belief in people may be low as well. Until you change that, you'll not be comfortable empowering your team. To do that, begin dwelling on positive qualities and characteristics. Look for people's greatest strengths and envision how they can use them to achieve significant things. Imagine what individuals could become if they made the most of their gifts and opportunities and then help them do it. And then the third item for applying the law to your day-to-day life is to help others succeed. If your natural inclination is to build and hold on to power, you're going to need to experience a paradigm shift to become an empowering leader. You want to select your best people and set them up for success. Train them, give them resources, set accomplishable goals that will help you and help the organization. Then give them responsibility and authority to follow through. If they fail, help until they succeed. Once you experience the joy and organizational effectiveness of empowering others, you'll have a hard time not giving away your power. Now, we're just about out of time, so we're going to leave it here for the day. But hopefully we've covered some information that you'll not only find interesting, but some ideas that you can start using right away. Before we finish up, I just want to cover one more thing because I think it's key to any kind of program like this, a program of change. The trouble is, it doesn't really have the impact that it needs to have for one simple reason. Change is not this event, it's a longer process. We have a tendency to overestimate the event and a tendency to underestimate the process. In an event, which is like this, it's important. You won't develop as a leader, but it can help you get started on getting better. If you think about it, to develop as a leader, we're going to be talking about changing your behaviors, and we can't just do that with a finger snap. So you can continue to lead the way you have been, or you can choose to intentionally develop these skills to increase your influence and leadership. As a result, it'll improve your results. Okay, so I've arranged a survey for this group that's watching this this presentation. If you take a shot of the QR code that's on the screen, it'll take you to a leadership survey on those 4 laws that we just covered. That can help with the self-assessment that was in the first law of the lid. If you have other questions or would like to contact me, please reach out. There's my contact information. And I wanted to say thank you so much to Courtney and the Greater Augusta Regional Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to do a presentation today.
Thank you so much, Scott. That was awesome. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any in the chat, but feel free to unmute and ask if you have any questions. We'll give you a second to do that. While you're doing that, I will post in the chat. We do have business after hours tomorrow night at Stewart Hall's Eastham Center. So I'll post the link to that in case you can join us and make sure that you get Scott's contact information there. I don't see anybody asking questions. So we will thank you there, Scott. Thank you so much for being with us today. To everyone, we will post this on our website a little bit later as soon as it's available to us. You can rewatch it, share it, take that survey. I'd be interested to see. I just pulled it up too, so I can take it. Be interested to see. Always really good information from Scott. I appreciate the way you present the leadership laws and how we can apply them right now in a practical way. I think it's important no matter what level of leadership we are at. So we appreciate you so much for being here. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.